America is filled with countless small towns most people will never hear about. But every once in a while, there's a town whose story echoes far beyond its dusty roads. Today, I want to take you to a place hidden deep in the desert of Arizona, a place called Copper Ridge. Once a booming mining town, now barely a dot on the map. It's a place with legends, mysteries, and one story that has refused to fade for more than 100 years. This is the story of the night the light of Copper Ridge vanished, and the stranger who brought it back. Our story begins in 1911, when Copper Ridge was alive with miners, saloons, and the promise of gold. The heat was unforgiving, the nights filled with the clang of machinery, but the people were proud because the mine was their heart, and the brightest symbol of that pride was the Copper Ridge Beacon, huge lantern mounted high on the old water tower. Every night at sunset, the beacon glowed across the desert like a lighthouse, guiding miners home and letting travelers know they were nearing civilization. They said the light of Copper Ridge never went out. Until one night it did. On a warm August night, a terrible storm rolled across the desert, thunder shaking windows, lightning setting the sky on fire. The townspeople huddled inside while the wind tore at roofs. And right at the height of the storm, the beacon flickered. Once, twice, and then vanished into the darkness. The whole town held its breath. When the storm passed, they climbed the tower and found something strange. The lantern wasn't broken. The fuel wasn't empty. The wick wasn't burned. It was as if the light had simply chosen not to shine. That night became legend, and for the next 3 decades, no one ever figured out why the beacon died. Now, fast forward to the late 1940s. Copper Ridge was shrinking. The mine was nearly empty. Families moved away. Storefronts closed one by one. The beacon towers stood tall but lifeless, a reminder of a brighter time. And that's when a stranger arrived, a young man named Thomas Hawley, carrying nothing but a leather satchel, a notebook, and a letter addressed to the sheriff. Thomas was quiet, polite, and strangely fascinated by the old beacon. Every evening he climbed the tower, sat by the lantern, and wrote for hours. He wasn't a miner, not a salesman, not a tourist. No one knew who he was, but he asked questions only someone with a personal stake would ask. People noticed something else. Thomas would stare at the horizon at sunset like he was waiting for someone. Folks tried to talk to him, but he kept to himself. That is, until he met Eliza Monroe, the last schoolteacher in Copper Ridge. Eliza was curious, bold, and not afraid to ask questions. One day she climbed the tower and asked Thomas why he spent every night with a lantern that no longer worked. Thomas hesitated, then finally told her the truth. He wasn't there for the town. He was there for the light. His father, Samuel Hawley, had been the last keeper of the beacon, responsible for climbing the tower every night to light it. And on the night of the infamous 1911 storm, Samuel was the last person to see the light alive. Samuel disappeared the next morning without a trace. Thomas grew up hearing rumors, some saying Samuel ran away, others saying the storm took him. But Thomas didn't believe any of it. He believed his father left clues, and those clues were hidden in Copper Ridge. The only thing he had was his father's old notebook, filled with sketches of the beacon, strange diagrams of constellations, and a final scribbled line: "When the sky splits open, follow the light." Elisa was fascinated. She promised to help Thomas uncover the truth. Together they began digging into town archives, talking to elderly miners, and piecing together what really happened the night the beacon died. And with every interview, a new detail emerged. One miner swore he saw a bright flash above the tower the moment the light went out. Another insisted he heard Samuel shouting something no one could understand. A third claimed he saw the water tower shake, as if something had landed on it. But the strangest account came from an old woman named Ruth who lived on the edge of town. She said she saw Samuel standing on the tower, arms raised toward the sky, as if he was signaling someone or something. Thomas and Eliza dismissed the supernatural theories, but they couldn't deny one thing. Samuel clearly knew the storm was unusual. His notebook confirmed it. He had been tracking something in the sky for months, something he believed would arrive on the night the storm hit. Thomas spent weeks studying the diagrams, and one evening, something clicked. The constellation patterns his father drew were in T. Random, they matched the night sky of the upcoming August 11th. the exact anniversary of the beacon's last light. Thomas and Eliza climbed the tower that night, holding the dusty lantern in their hands. The town below them was quiet, almost abandoned. The desert air was thick and still. And then, just after sunset, the sky split open. A streak of blinding white light tore across the heavens, illuminating the tower and painting the desert gold. Thomas raised the lantern without thinking, and for the first time in 37 years. It ignited, but it wasn't fire. It wasn't fuel. The lantern glowed with a soft, impossible blue light that didn't flicker. Light that felt alive. The entire tower hummed with a low vibration. Eliza stepped back in awe. Thomas could barely breathe, and that's when they heard it. A voice distant, echoing, warm, calling Thomas's name. Not from the sky, not from the desert, but from inside the glow of the lantern. Thomas reached toward the light, and for a moment, he felt someone holding his hand. A whisper filled the air. "I never left." Then the light blinked. Once, twice, and vanished. The lantern went dark. The sky returned to normal. The humming stopped. But Thomas stood frozen, tears in his eyes, because he recognized the voice. It was his father. 4 weeks afterward, Thomas stayed in Copper Ridge, hoping the light would return, hoping he'd see or hear his father again. But it never happened. Eventually, he thanked Eliza, packed his satchel, and left town, leaving behind only a letter. In it, he wrote, "The light didn't die. It simply waited for someone who remembered." Copper Ridge faded into history. The mine closed. The last families left. The tower rusted and collapsed in the 1970s. But the legend the night the light returned lives on. Travelers say that every few years, on August 11th, a faint blue glow appears over the desert, just for a moment, like a heartbeat from the past. Some say it's just heat or atmospheric tricks. Oter Sahit, Samuel Hale, still tending to his beacon. But if you ever find yourself on a lonely desert road outside an abandoned Arizona town, and you see a flicker of blue light on the horizon, well, now you know the story behind it. And that was the last light of Copper Ridge, a forgotten American mystery that reminds us that some lights never truly vanish. They just wait for the right person to see them again. Thanks for watching. And if you love stories like this, be sure to subscribe for more.